Okay, let's dive right in. We're going to try and unpack a huge question, one that sits right at the heart of biology and philosophy. Do things happen for a reason? And, what does that mean for us? When you look at the living world, purpose seems to be, well, everywhere. Every single creature, every plant looks like it's acting for something, like it's chasing a goal. A lion hunts so it can eat. A flower tracks the sun to get energy. These aren't just random movements, right? They're actions with a clear aim. And this apparent purposefulness, it actually creates a massive problem for science. Jacques Monod, a Nobel Prize winner, he called this the central paradox of biology. He used a big phrase for it, a profound epistemological contradiction. That's a mouthful, but what he's getting at is a deep conflict in the very way we know things. See, modern science is built on objectivity, on rejecting purpose. But biology, the study of life, it's absolutely drenched in. So this leads to what you could call a great divide in how we see the universe. It's like there are two different rule books. On one side, you've got physics and chemistry, all governed by mechanical laws that don't have any goals. And on the other, you've got the world of life, which seems to be driven by some kind of internal project. It's a total split between the living and the non-living. So how did we get here? Where did this scientific divide even come from? Well, to figure that out, we have to rewind the clock, back to the birth of modern science. So before the scientific revolution, everyone was thinking like Aristotle, and the main question was always, why? Why does a rock fall? Well, to reach its natural home at the center of the universe. Every single thing had a final cause, an ultimate purpose. But then modern science came along and just flipped the whole table. The new question wasn't why anymore, it was how. How does gravity work? How do the gears in a clock turn? It was a massive shift from purpose to pure mechanism. Francis Bacon, who was a huge figure in all this, he basically argued that asking why a heart exists, yeah, it's interesting for philosophers, but it's scientifically useless. It doesn't tell you how the thing pumps blood. And if you want to build an artificial heart, you need to know how it works, not why it's there. That focus on practical, how-to knowledge was a total game changer. But this shift had a huge consequence. Science pretty much kicked purpose out the front door. And in doing so, it created this deep chasm. On one side, a world of cold, hard mechanics. On the other, the world that seems filled with meaning and goals, the world that we live in. Now, if there's one arena where this whole battle over purpose has been fought the hardest, it is, without a doubt, the theory of evolution. Is there a point to it all? Is it actually going somewhere? So the first major scientific theory of transformation came from Jean-Baptiste Lamarck. And his idea was deeply teleological, which just means it was driven by purpose. In his view, the needs and the efforts of an animal were the actual engine of change. Now, pay close attention to how cause and effect are framed here. For Lamarck, the need came first. An ancient bird didn't just randomly get wings, it developed them over generations because it wanted to fly. The purpose, the goal of flying, is what literally created the biological form. And then, Charles Darwin shows up with this completely revolutionary idea. Darwin's theory gives you things that look like they were designed for a purpose, but it does it without any actual purpose driving the whole show. It's all about random changes and non-random filtering. Darwin's great champion, T.H. Huxley, he saw the genius in this right away. He said Darwin did the impossible. He brought together the study of purpose, teleology, and the study of form, morphology. He gave us a way to get all the appearance of design, the perfectly formed eye, the super efficient wing, without needing a designer or a grand plan. It's purpose-like, but not actually purposeful. Darwin gave us the missing piece that Lamarck just didn't have. As Richard Dawkins explains it, Lamarck's theory fails because there's no filter. There's no way to sort the good changes from the bad ones. I mean, if you inherit all acquired traits, you'd inherit bad habits just as easily as good ones. Darwin's natural selection is that critical filter. It's a cumulative process that sifts through random noise and keeps what works, letting complexity build up over millions of years. It is the exact opposite of pure chance. So, okay, Darwin gives us this powerful way to explain adaptation without a cosmic goal. But we're still left with this feeling, this sense of purpose in every living thing. And this brings us to a really different and kind of radical way of looking at the entire problem. The proposal is this. What if purpose isn't something that needs consciousness or some grand plan? What if it's just an emergent property of any organized system? Not something in the parts themselves, but a feature of the system as a whole. Now, this idea of systemic purpose has a few key ingredients. One, it belongs to the whole system, not its individual parts. Two, and this is crucial, it doesn't require any consciousness or awareness. A thermostat has a purpose, but it doesn't sit around thinking about it. Three, this purpose is fundamentally about one thing, self-maintenance. And four, here's the big leap. It can apply to any structured system, living or not. We're talking everything from a cell to a star. This idea completely reframes the debate. It just dissolves that old sticky divide between the living and the non-living. The real distinction isn't animate versus inanimate. It's between structured systems, things with organized parts working together, and unstructured things like, a pile of sand.
And we can even get more specific. We can identify two kinds of purpose. You have the internal purpose. That's the stuff a system does just to keep itself going, like a lion hunting to feed itself. But then there's an external purpose. That's the role the system plays in an even bigger system. The lion isn't just feeding itself. It's also playing a role as a predator, helping regulate the gazelle population. That's its function in the whole savanna ecosystem.
So what's the practical takeaway from all of this? If we accept this new way of thinking, it should change how we look at the world, and maybe just as important, how we talk about it. Part of the problem here might just be our own language. The word purpose is, it's loaded. We hear it and we immediately think of conscious intent, of a mind making a plan. And all that baggage gets in the way of a clearer, more objective way of looking at things, especially when we're talking about anything that isn't human. And this leads to a pretty simple but really powerful suggestion. Let's just change our words. Instead of the loaded term purpose, what if we talked about function or role? What is the function of the heart in the circulatory system? What is the role of bees in pollination? This language describes the exact same reality, but it strips away all those unhelpful and often wrong assumptions about intent. And this leaves us with a final and pretty provocative thought. If we can apply this idea of systemic function to any structured system, what does that mean for the huge, complex, non-living systems we've built ourselves? What's the true function of our global economy, of a sprawling city, of the internet? By looking at them not as things with a pre-planned purpose, but as complex systems with emergent functions and roles, we might just be able to understand them, and maybe even manage them, a whole lot better.